Hello, everyone, and good morning, and welcome back to another author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is another author making their official debut here on the show. Now, my guest today is the author of Salt and Ash, a broken planet in the debut novel of said author from Hampshire. She's currently building a Salt and Ash book. Yeah, sorry. She's currently building Salt and Ash books into a full publishing company, bringing her unique voice and vision to a wider literary world. Educated in biology, psychology, and chemistry at a level, she combines scientific foundations with over a decade of professional experience in healthcare. Having worked in the sector for 11 years before dedicating herself fully to writing and raising her family, she brings both clinical understanding and lived emotional depth to her work. As a mother to neurodivergent children, she has immersed herself in the complexities of autonomy, communication, and societal systems, perspectives that subtly but powerfully inform her fiction. Her stories explore who society protects, who is overlooked, and what it truly means to live, laugh, and love. A committed advocate for environmental consciousness, she is an active member of a local sustainability society. Her devotion to nature, a recurring theme in her work, grounds the trilogy's ethical and emotional arcs. Now, the concept for Salt and Ash was sparked by a vivid dream following the birth of her third child, a moment that ignited deeper questions about modern civilizations. What happens when society fractures into those driven by ambition and productivity, and those left behind by circumstance? Who truly thrives, and what does it truly mean to live fully? And the trilogy continues with book 2 and book 3 scheduled for release for this year and 2027. So, without further ado, let's give a huge round of applause to our guest today, all the way from the UK, Amelia Livermore. Amelia, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Awesome, Amelia. I am so excited to have you here on the show. Now, I got to ask this question, and I don't know if you may have an answer for this one. So,
Okay.
as a little icebreaker, since you have such a illustrious career that's branched over so many decades into so many different fields, is there a random fact about you that many people may not know about?
Oh, okay. I mean, I didn't leave much to the imagination there, did I? There's quite a lot of information. So, yes, I used to own 22 poultry, including chickens and ducks. I'm an absolute lover of animals.
Awesome. All right. I like it. I like it. And in this interview, as mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about your debut novel trilogy, Salt and Ash. And without revealing too much about it, what can people expect from the trilogy beginning with book one?
Okay, so it's set in a dystopian future. It's following climate collapse and is set in a city which is a product of that climate collapse. And book one follows my two protagonists, which are shaped by the oppression of that city.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. Now, before we dive deep into the creation of this trilogy, beginning with book one, let's talk a little bit more about you, Amelia, and your journey. So, from your bio, you first started off working in healthcare in the medical sector for 11 years. And as stated in your bio, your background in the medical field has greatly impacted your writing and has brought a lot of authenticity to it, which I think is really awesome. So, from working in the medical field to transitioning into writing, what really, brought about this desire to create stories? Was that always there growing up, or did that come about later in life?
So, yeah, it was there growing up, very much so. As a child, I remember getting for Christmas writing packs, and I had an obsession with author called Jacqueline Wilson, who's a child's author. and I really wanted to be like her. But that kind of fizzled out. I never really thought it could be possible for me, so I followed other avenues, and that writing kind of turned into, as you say, a career in healthcare. I was writing risk assessments and care plans and those sort of things, but never fiction books or any kind of book for myself. And it wasn't until I got the idea for this book that I suddenly thought, hang on, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could be an author. I've got the skills. Why not? What's stopping me?
Nice. All right. All right. Now, also going back to your bio, the birth of your third child is kind of what really sparked the creation or the idea of for Salt and Ash. So, can you walk me through that process when you decided that this book or the idea of this book was the one you wanted to fully explore and flesh out and have this be the beginning of your journey?
Yeah, so I had a dream, and the dream is now so far away from the concept of the book, but that's how it started. It was this really strange concept, that society could split and evolve away from each other, and that got me talking with my husband, and we discussed the possibilities and the ideas behind it, and it was just so interesting to explore that I thought, hang on, there's a real good story in here somewhere. So that's sort of how it was born. And then, as you say, it was following the birth of my third child. And I think on my bio I said that some of them are neurodivergent. My youngest, who's my fourth child, is also born with a genetic condition, which has meant that I had to stop working my old job to look after her. So that gave me the opportunity to write this, and now it is a full devotion to building a future for us through writing.
Amazing, amazing, Amelia. So now let's actually dive into the behind the scenes of Salt and Ash, beginning with book one. So let's start with the title first, because I always think the title is very interesting to explore for books. So how did the idea of for the name of the trilogy, Salt and Ash, come about? Was that always the main title you had in mind? Was there a few works in progress? How did the title come about?
Well, I found the title was the most difficult part of it. I'll be honest. Finding a title that fit the book, that wasn't generic, that wasn't impossible to remember, that was really hard for me. The idea of Salt and Ash, because Navarus, which is the city the book is set in, is a city based in the middle of the sea, and that's where salt comes from, and the ash is the climate collapse. So I don't really know how it came about, but it's something twigged, and I just thought, yeah, that really captures the whole trilogy.
Nice. All right. Okay. Now, this one I always like to ask a lot of authors. Do you consider yourself an outliner or a pantser?
Oh, what does that mean? I'm so sorry, I don't know.
Oh, of course, of course. So, outliner, you have like a very distinct outline, like from beginning to end, you know what's going to be happening in each chapter verbatim. Whereas a pantser, you have a general idea of like, the beginning, what happens in the middle, and the end. But leading up to those specific moments is just spontaneous. You just write what you're feeling in the mood at that moment.
Right. Okay. I'm definitely an outliner in that case. I think I started off very vague, but before I really got into the writing, I have to make sure I had a good plan. I mean, this was all new to me at first, so I needed to have some kind of solid plan to go off of. Otherwise, I just thought it wouldn't work.
Absolutely. I've tried being a pantser for my last book. It worked, but I was like, I can't do this. I absolutely cannot do this again. I like being an outliner, which is funny I say that because my fifth book, I wrote it as one, but I pants a majority of that book because I was like, okay, I am like skipping about 40 years. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna make this into book one. and ultimately my outline is going to be book 3 at this point because it fits, so well. But yeah, it just works for, certain authors, and it doesn't. Some authors like to have a very distinct outline. Some just like to just have like a very vague outline. And it's all about, personal preferences and how we build along the way. Now, as our first fan question, Amelia, one of my viewers would like to know, when you began writing the Salt and Ash trilogy, what really surprised you about that initial beginning of, penning out the first draft of the first book?
I think I wasn't prepared for how much change it would go through. So I wrote my first draft over quite a few years because I
Mm,
felt like it needed to be perfect. And I've since learnt, now writing book 2, that that is not the case at all. Your first draft is there to make the mistakes, and it can evolve over time. So actually, I ended up getting rid of so much of my first draft because the pacing was wrong, or there was too much detail or not enough detail. And um, I wish I'd known that at the beginning. It would have saved a lot of time.
absolutely. And now for my next fan question, one of my viewers would like to know, and I've kind of changed this question a little bit. Instead of asking authors, what routine or ritual they use, I like asking now this question of balance, especially authors who are parents, who have, children they have to care for and manage. And it can be a lot. It can be, a lot to, find an equilibrium that, balances both. So for you, Amelia, as a mother of 4 children, how are you able to balance everything, but also make time for you to have your writing and to have those moments of, I want to say a piece, but like moments to think and like plan out an idea for a chapter or for the chapter you're working on?
Not very well. That's how I manage it. So yeah, it's really hard striking that balance. Some weeks actually it's impossible. You can't. You're so stretched thin, and you can't find time for yourself at all. I mean, for me anyway. And so I have to remember that this isn't forever. They're only small for a small time, and
Hmm.
I have to be as flexible as I can. But writing allows me that. That being said, I do walk my dog. I have to walk my dog. She has needs as well. So when I walk her, the ideas come to me, and that gives me time to kind of develop my story. And I can even talk in my head about how I'm going to write it, and it stays with me. So when I come to start typing, it's just already there.
Nice. Now, would you consider yourself more of a night owl when it comes to writing, or do you consider yourself an early riser in the sense of waking up at like maybe 4 in the morning and spending 2 hours writing? I've known and met quite a few authors on this show that have admitted to doing that.
Wow. No, neither in my case. I like my sleep too much to do either. I'm up at 7 and I go to bed at between 9 and 10. Yeah, I think I try and find my time during the day. I'm so tired in the evenings that my brain cannot write. So I have to find my hours during the day.
All right, all right. Now, next fan question. These are two-parters, two of them, and they may kind of border on spoilers, so feel free to give as much or as little. The first two-parter, one of my viewers would like to know, is when writing the characters in the first book, did you have a favorite character that you enjoyed writing as well as a favorite scene?
I absolutely had a favorite character, and she wasn't there from the beginning. She kind of wrote herself. which if you're a writer, you'll probably understand that some of these things, they happen on their own. You have no control over them. As you start writing, they come to life before you. So that character for me was Mallow, who is it's difficult to explain if you don't read the book, but it's a kind of different species, a subspecies of human. And she thinks she's so funny. So I don't know, there's something about her. She's so naive and so lovely, and I really liked her. My favorite scene, I think I would give a spoiler if I could share that. So I think I'll have to keep that one under wraps for now.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Now, the other question, which is now the opposite, the inverse. In the first book, was there a character that was so frustratingly difficult to bring to life, as well as a scene or chapter that took several revisions to get right?
Yeah, there was actually. So I have a character called Professor Oak. And no, he's not called Professor Oak. Sorry, that's he's got two names, so I've kind of merged the two there. He's called Professor Xwinix, and he's also referred to as Oak. He was very difficult to get right. He's an older man, very intelligent. I don't know, he's so far away from me, so it was very difficult to develop him. So yeah, that took me quite some time, but I think I've got him down to a T now.
All right, all right. Now, what about challenging scene? Was there any scenes or chapters that took several revisions to bring to life?
I don't think in particular. Maybe the first one, probably like the introduction, I probably worked on the most, probably mostly because I started there every time I came back to the book. So I'd give it breaks of writing, and then I'd come back and I'd start at chapter 1 again, or sorry, the introduction. And so I think that was one of the big mistakes that I made. It was constantly coming back to the beginning and not continuing on with the book, but starting and fixing what I'd already done, which didn't necessarily need to be done.
Right. Okay. And when writing these characters, since it is set in a climate apocalypse and everything's heightened to 100, how did you still write the characters to be believable and authentic, in the sense that it makes sense for them to exist in this hell of a world that you have put them in?
Actually, that was the easy part. I think humanity at its rawest form is the same. You can put someone anywhere and they will always behave in a very human way. And the story itself is very character driven, so it focuses a lot on their emotions, and I think it's very easy for people to adapt and ignore things that are going on around them. That's evident in our current like global warming. We just kind of sometimes go, oh, it's okay, it will sort itself out. And I think it's very easy for humanity to actually ignore these horrible things that are happening and just carry on and just to adapt.
All right. All right. Now, when you began writing this trilogy, beginning with book 1, what was the goal you had for yourself as the author? And also the promise you're making, not just to yourself as the author, but to your future readers?
I think I never really set out with a goal, actually. I just wanted to share this with the world. I never really had readers in mind. It was always writing for myself, and hopefully somebody else would love it as much as I did. And I think that still remains. I think I give away a lot of free copies of my book because I just want to share it with the world. I just want people to read what I've imagined. And I'm so incredibly proud of the world I've created that I feel like it deserves to be out there. Um, so yeah, no goal in mind. There's still no goal. It would be great if I could finish the trilogy and gain some kind of following from that. But if that doesn't happen, then at least I've shared it with the world.
All right, all right. Now, this next question is sort of like the beginning into what I like to call the reflective questions. They're semi-reflective questions because they reflect on what it means to be an author in the digital age. But before we dive fully into that, these questions are like little introductions. Now, I've talked to a lot of people on this show, Amelia. I've been doing this show now for about 7 years now in total, which is absolutely insane. 542 videos with probably about a good third of those being author interviews. I think that's like maybe in the 200s, which is crazy to believe. And a
Mhm.
lot of times that I've had people on the show, they've always told me the story of when they felt comfortable telling people that they're authors. And they've always had that hesitancy because everyone views authors like, oh, you're an author. Okay. But when they told people, they're writers, it's a very different reaction. It's a very different, like, oh, you're a writer. Oh, well, you're right. See, that's where the engagement stems from. So, kind of like the first in this semi reflective questions, Amelia, in your opinion, is there a difference between someone who views themselves as a writer as opposed to someone who views them as an author? Is the only distinction being one is published and the other is not?
Yeah, I think I've always thought of it like that. If you're a writer, you're writing. Um, I mean, we're all writers. We still write. That when you're an author, it's because you're published. I suppose that's what I've always believed. And I don't think I told anyone I was an author until I was published because I had no kind of presence for someone to look up on online. I had no evidence to support that I was this author. So yeah, I definitely felt more comfortable once I was published.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads into the next question, Amelia, which is, so once you felt, comfortable telling people after you were published, did you tell your friends and family or just your inner circle? That's another thing that I've also found with a lot of guests on the show is that some of their parents don't even know that they are authors until the interview drops. I've had that a few times. So,
Okay.
yeah. So for you, did you let your friends and family know, like, once you were published that you were an author, or did you just tell your select group of people that you had embarked on this journey?
So I think my parents were my biggest fans from day one. They knew before anyone else. In fact, my mum helped me read it before it was published. She was kind of part editor, helping me along. And but once I was published, I was quite happy to tell. In fact, I was proud to tell everybody. Although telling somebody when they asked me what I did for a living, that I was an author for the first time, that was a bit surreal. They kind of double took and they're like, really? That you write books? Yeah, I write books. I've published a book. Um, and that was a really nice point for me actually to share that with someone officially.
Awesome. Awesome. So now let's dive into, the reflective side of being an author, especially in the digital age. Now, this next question, Amelia, is a very loaded question. So I will give some context for this. So, as I'm sure you can agree, a lot of things have changed because of the digital age. I mean, being an author is not the same as it was 20 years ago.
Mm.
Traditional publishing is still the dominant force. And again, 20 years ago, if you went hybrid, small press, or indie, you were seen as a lesser form of publication. You weren't seen as professional.
Mhm.
But now, so you can't even tell the difference between a book that is small press, hybrid, or indie to traditional. It's gotten that good because authors, want to be taken seriously. They want to have professional covers done. They want to have professional editors edit their work. They want to have beta readers and ARC readers read their books, provide feedback, and leave reviews on their sites to help generate interest and revenue. And all of that plays into social media. Social media has definitely transformed the game for better or for worse. Sometimes a little mix of both. And while social media is a good tool for authors to grow their platform, gain new readership, and make connections, I'm sure you can definitely agree, Amelia, that it also has its fair share of negativity. We leave ourselves exposed
Yeah.
to a lot of trolls, spam, everything. And social media can also heighten very personal issues where I've had a lot of people talk on the show. They had to step away from social media because everyone kept messaging them saying, when's the next book coming out? When's the next this coming out? And that feeds into their writer's block. It's like, shoot, can I even write a sequel or continue this story? Imposter syndrome, where readers will say, oh, if you like Brian Sanderson or Frank Herbert, you're going to enjoy this book. Feeds into this notion is like, should I even be considered part of this group because I'm a nobody compared to these titans? And of course, getting lost in our own publicity, which unfortunately has happened with a lot of people. And a lot of authors have shared their experiences of themselves as well as friends they knew who went into this business, but completely losing their passion for writing and losing that discipline. So ultimately, Amelia, with everything that I've just mentioned, what has disciplined you to stay true to yourself, to not get bogged too deep in imposter syndrome, and to not have writer's block curb your drive to continue this trilogy?
I'm not sure I've learnt the answer to that question yet because I definitely experience all of those things. But I think it's all about balance, isn't it? I think if you put the writing first, if you let the passion flow, then get to the other stuff later. Because I think I've been advised that the more books you release, the more natural, organic kind of um, you get organic. I'm sorry, I'm lost. I can't think of the word. But you get interest building up with each release of each book. Um, and I think that's sort of driving me and keeping me on the path to keep writing, keep doing what I enjoy. And the other stuff is just a bonus. It's not like we're all going to go viral. It doesn't matter if we don't post every day. I think if we can just focus on the writing, do a little bit of the other stuff on the side, and hopefully it should build. I mean, it's difficult for all indie authors anyway. It's you're not going to be able to do miracles just by showing up on social media every day anyway.
Yes, 100%. Very, very true. And this goes into the next set of reflective questions. And this one talks about, well, it's the debate that I've been seeing of whether or not we are in a golden age or more so of an iron age. And I'll break down what that means. Now, during the last 5 years or so, COVID changed everything. It isolated a lot of people. But especially last year, a lot of authors that I had on the show stated on camera that their journeys began during COVID. They began writing books during lockdown. I myself was one of those authors. And because of that, you had a lot of new creatives enter the industry. You had a lot of new editors, narrators, artists, and of course, authors that took the indie world by storm. And some argue that the industry is overly saturated, which there's some truth to that. But as things have settled down and new voices have already established themselves, we now find ourselves in a new conundrum. And that is, of course, the rise of generative AI and the rise of AI in publishing. I've seen a lot of articles, spoken with a lot of people, authors, editors, and narrators to get the full picture. And everyone can agree AI as a tool can be used to help with the writing process, but it never should be the main tool, especially with generative AI. I'm sure you've seen some articles, I've heard some stories on the grapevines, on social media of authors writing books with generative AI and saying that, well, I've authored 200 books, but did you though? Did you author 200 books, or were you just the coder and programmer who made 200 books? There's been now this shift where for those who do use generative AI to create books, that they shouldn't say authored by, it should be said as either created or programmed by, because you don't author it, you just created it. And this is where we now get a sense of the irony. We're getting now this shift between those who are passionate about telling human driven stories and those who simply get into the market just to make a little bit of money or a quick bit of money using generative AI because they know the technology is there. So, Amelia, I pose this question to you. From your own personal experiences, do you believe that we are still in an iron age or are we still in a golden age?
Wow. That is a very difficult question. I don't think I know enough about it to comment. I can only personally say I've heard of not just writers but readers who claim to have read 50 books so far this year, and when you sort of quiz them on it, oh yeah, well AI summarized it for me, and then so therefore I've read it, and that's not the beauty of a book. You get lost in a book. That is why we do it, because whole worlds are created in our minds when we read. And I think AI is not foolproof. I think if you read a book created by AI, you can tell. AI has not been that sophisticated yet that they can create a really good best-selling book. It doesn't happen. So I think it's a little bit scaremongering. Actually, I don't think AI is going to take over in that sense. I don't think it ever will be that sophisticated. I could be wrong. But like you say, AI can also be used as a tool and help people with various things in the story making process. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know enough about it. But from my experience, I don't think we have anything to be worried about other than readers maybe getting a bit fatigued at coming across AI written books and sort of rolling their eyes and thinking, not another one. It's becoming a bit saturated in that sense.
Absolutely. Now, this is then leaning into the marketing side, but this is kind of a very personal question because I've had a lot of authors share their experiences. And that is, of course, Amelia, have you ever had the unfortunate displeasure of someone claiming that your works were written by AI? I've had a lot of authors mention on the show that people on the internet have accused them of writing with generative AI or an AI software. And I'm wondering if that's ever happened to you. And if it hasn't, that's good. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on sort of like this, for lack of better term, a cyber witch hunt.
Yeah, so it absolutely hasn't happened to me. I'm very grateful to say. I am waiting for it because I do write with M dashes. I find them a useful tool, and I know that's one of the things that people look at and go, "Oh, that's AI," but it absolutely isn't. So I'm waiting for it, but it is becoming a bit of a witch hunt. But you can tell, I think if you read enough, you can tell what is written by a human and what isn't. So I don't think that witch hunt needs to happen, but it definitely is happening.
Yes, unfortunately, it does happen. And that ultimately has led to a lot of authors trying to remarket themselves, even if they haven't written in you use generative AI because of the algorithms and everything. They've had to remarket themselves to show that, hey, I am a human voice only author. In fact, I've had a lot of people mention that they've actually added that clause in their books in the copyright page that like this book was created by an author, not AI. It sucks that we're at that point that we have to mention that,
Yeah.
but that is the industry that we are living in, and that has led to still some good marketability for these authors. And on the topic of marketing our books, that leads to the first icebreaker for my favorite segment, the business side of being an author. Once you finished writing book one, Amelia, what really surprised you about the marketing aspect of this industry? And as you prepare for the release of book two later this year and book three in 2027, is there anything you're going to be doing differently for those books that you wish you'd done for the first?
So there was a lot to be learnt when I published. There was a lot that surprised me, actually. I think I published book one at the same time as I started to market it, which was my first mistake. A lot of other writers will create accounts, share their progress, and gain a following before they even begin publishing it. And I had to start from scratch I actually did create an account about 2 months before I published it, and that was not long enough. That being said, social media isn't the only way to market a book. It's free and it's organic, so it definitely helps. I wouldn't waste so much money trialing ads. I've trialed that, it's not worked for me. I've actually recently been on a marketing course, a digital marketing course, to teach me how to market my book. I'm halfway through the marketing course at the moment. And having done that now, I wish I'd done that at the beginning, because I would have saved a lot of money for me just trying to gain some reach. And it's just so hard to get your message to anyone. But I think the biggest mistake that I made, and that I won't be doing again with book two, is I looked up the lifetime expectancy of sales for book number one, and it gave me a random number of 400, I think. So I went and bought 400 copies of my book, and I thought I'd sell them all, and I haven't. They're still sat there. I mean, not all 400. I have shifted probably 100. But obviously there's other channels. There's Amazon, there's online sales. I'm on Ingram Spark. So there are other sales happening that aren't just from my unique stock. And that has cost me a lot of money. So I certainly shan't be doing that again.
Absolutely. And I remember actually one of my colleagues actually said this not too long ago. And they actually say the one thing that authors should definitely do if they do buy like a large amount of their books, for those on their website that can't have a store feature, depending on if you use GoDaddy or anything like that, where you don't have the capabilities to put an online store, is to have a signed author copy form, where that allows fans who have been following the author on social media want a signed copy. And I have learned that a lot of people would pay a lot of money for a signed copy, whether it's a signature or an inscription. So maybe, Amelia, that could be an avenue to explore for your book, to have a little form where people can fill out on your website. And it's like, what's your name? What's your street address so I can send the book to you? Do you have an inscription, payment, all that stuff? Maybe another avenue to look into.
Oh, thank you so much. I actually have a signed option, and I have sold a few, but I haven't gone to as much detail. It's literally just my signature. So that's a lovely idea about adding the inscription and other things like that. So definitely something to look into. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. Now let's actually talk about a big thing about the business side of being an author, and that is, of course, the audience. The audience is very, very important. Now, a lot of authors that I've talked to on the show have said that they don't write with an audience in mind and don't consider them at all. They just write the books for themselves, and that works for them. Other people that I've had on the show, complete opposite. They knew the audience from the get go. And then you have the one group, like myself, who are still trying to figure out who our audience is. And it comes a lot of trial and error. And the one thing that I've found, which I don't think is talked about as much, is this notion that every genre and subgenre has readership and fans who expect a story to go a certain way. Now, your trilogy is a climate apocalypse. And I assume a lot of readers who love that style of storytelling have specific requirements they expect a book like that to follow. And we find ourselves in this equilibrium balance. You, Amelia, want to show your authenticity as the author, bring about, your real life experiences working in the medical field to bring about that scientific avenue as well as your academic background as well. But also on the other side, you don't want to write a book that's too familiar, that's going to be seen as a knockoff version. But you don't want to write something that's too original, that's going to throw people off. It's this fine balance. So for you, Amelia, when writing book one, did you have an idea of the audience you were writing for, or did you not? And secondly, how difficult has it been for you as an author to balance this teeter-totter of authenticity versus marketability?
So I absolutely did not have any idea of an audience, which is probably a very big mistake. Um, but the difficulty I'm having, and or still having, like you, trying to find my audience, is that the dystopian era, a lot of the books, like Hunger Games, you've got Maze Runner, Divergent, they're all young adult books. And I wrote mine not in the mind that it would be a young adult book, but it could be if it needed to be. And I wanted to market it to grown adults because of the themes involved. I still kind of question the idea of a 14-year-old reading The Hunger Games with all its violence. And whilst that's worked really well, evidently she's very successful for Suzanne Collins. And for me, I don't know, there was something that didn't quite sit right with the themes inside it. That being said, I still did market it. I was pushed into it to market it as a young adult book, but I've regretted it ever since, and I've been marketing it myself as to adults. It's just only in the metadata that it is young adult. And sorry, I've forgotten your second question.
Of course, the second question, which I'm actually going to add on to that later, is when writing the first book in the Salt and Ash trilogy, how did you balance authenticity with marketability? Because at the end of the day, you want to market this book and, generate some capital.
Yeah, so I think that was quite easy for me, actually. Once I got away from that kind of, I don't want to appeal to those young adults. I'm sort of between those ages. I thought about the era of Hunger Games and Divergent when it was such a big hype, and actually there are many people that have lived through that and now are willing it to come back. They want the dystopian era back through nostalgia of that era that they had. So if I look at the age of those people now, they're maybe in their 30s, early 40s, late 20s. And so those are the people that I'm marketing my book to, because I think that it is that nostalgic kind of era of dystopia that that people want.
Yes, absolutely. And still on the topic of YA, I would actually be remiss if I did not talk about the big elephant in the room. And I actually had one of my reviewers message me about it to, talk with another author about it to hear their thoughts on. Now, I won't go into detail, viewers and listeners, but if you know, there has been a book that has been making the webs for all the wrong reasons. I will just say it's a book that's marketed for YA, but the content, specifically one chapter, should not have existed or had no place being in that book. And a lot of authors have been voicing their criticisms, and rightly so, because this isn't the first time this has happened. There's been a lot of books that have been marketed as YA, but are borderlining new adult and adult fiction. And I definitely think, that's not what YA is supposed to be. Now, not to say you can't have adult themes or adult undertones, or not adult, but like grown-up undertones or themes sprinkled throughout the book that talk about maybe like death, loss, or something along those lines. But I think a lot of people are outraged that a lot of these authors who write for YA are putting overtly graphic material involving young adult characters that should not even be engaging in that. And Amelia, I would like to hear your thoughts on this. As you mentioned, you initially tried to write it for, YA, to appeal like to, fans who enjoyed the Hunger Games, but realized it's probably not the best and marketing towards adults, which seems to me you've had a more, better reaction and better progress so far. So I would like to hear your own thoughts on this big issue that is impacting the publishing industry,
Mm.
and advice you would give to like other authors who want to write for a YA audience, if that is indeed the audience they want to market to.
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult subject. Like I say, when you look at the Hunger Games, the kind of themes that they explore, it's it's very mature. And I mean, as a mother myself, to a nearly teen, I don't feel that comfortable with her reading that kind of content. That being said, I think it's just so difficult, isn't it? I think personally, I don't like it, but it doesn't mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm so sorry. I
No,
just
no, no.
it's a really controversial subject. I don't want to put anyone else down, but as a mother who has a child, I think it should be monitored. I think
Yes.
that's the thing. I think we should have something in place that protects these young people from this content. I don't know the rules and regulations in place at the moment. I don't believe there are any. Perhaps there should be.
Yes, absolutely. And this actually is a fan question that one of my viewers sent me through my website, that they wanted me to ask my next guest, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. And still on this topic of, marketing, because the publishing industry is very, it's become very fluid. There have been some books that are supposed to be marketed as this, but get put in this because of, oh, it has all these themes. People are saying it's the next Hunger Games, and they kind of put it in different categories when sometimes even the authors say, no, my book is not meant for young adults. My book is meant for adults. Or, my book, which is young adult, it should not be middle grade because it does touch upon some grown up and mature things. And so ultimately, this viewer would like to know, in your own thoughts, Amelia, since we have a national regulation, well, here in the States, I'm pretty sure there's one in the UK of, movies that are nationally regulated as for this audience, video games which are nationally regulated for like E, teen, and M. Do you believe, in your opinion, that the publishing industry should have something similar in place, like a national registry of this is what we classify as, middle grade, YA, uh, new adult, and adult fiction, to have those clear distinctions and to not have those issues of mismarketing, misplacement, and stuff like that.
I absolutely do. I think, as you pointed out, indie authors are now so capable of making books which are so professional and so unrecognizable from traditional published books. So we no longer have that kind of trustworthy, we don't know who these people are making these books. And that's not to put indie authors down, because for the most part we are brilliant, and it's not to say that anybody would do so maliciously, but to be able to put content in front of younger audiences and have it not regulated is frighteningly easy to do. And I think have something in place now would probably be a wise step, but I don't know how that would look. I don't know how that could be implemented. I don't know how that would then affect indie authors. So it's certainly something that needs to be looked into.
Absolutely. When we arrive at the final question of this amazing interview, Amelia. Now, we talked about a lot of things in this interview, from your journey as an author, what you've learned, your experiences, how you marketed, finding your voice, and so forth. At the end of the day, what do you want people to take away from the first book in this trilogy? And ultimately, what is your pearl of wisdom to your fellow authors and writers?
So I think I'd love people to take away a kind of reflection of our own world, and hopefully leave them with something that really stays with them for a long time. I often think this Netflix series, Black Mirror, that kind of makes me reflect on current life. If I can achieve anything close to that, that would be fantastic. And then my word of wisdom would be just write the book. Just get the journey started, because you never know where it's going to take you. So just write the book.
Beautifully said, Amelia, and a beautiful ending to this incredible author interview here on the show. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another amazing episode here on the channel. A huge thank you to our guest, Amelia, for coming on the show, making her official debut. And if you would like to see her back for a follow-up interview promoting book 2, as well as book 3 in 2027, make sure to like this video, comment down below, and subscribe. Now, Amelia, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out and connect, order a copy of book 1, and pre-order 2 and 3 when they are available? And do you have any announcements you'd like to share? Any book signings going to be in person in local areas?
So my website is saltandash.co.uk. You can find all my social media profiles on there, and you can find out where to buy the book locally to you. And coming up, yes, I'm actually starting my own podcast with my scriptwriter husband. So that's an exciting thing for us to work towards, and we'll see how that develops.
Awesome. I will link all that down below in the description of this video, viewers and listeners. And also, last minute, Amelia, since you just mentioned that you are in the process of, making a podcast with your husband, if people wanted to reach out and either offer topics or possibly want to be featured as a guest on your podcast, or at least be considered, where can people message you?
So if you go onto my website, you can find my social media profiles there. You can message me there for now, but my YouTube will be Script and Story Podcasts.
Nice. Excellent. You heard it first, viewers and listeners. If you want to be featured or have an idea for an episode for Amelia and her husband, reach out to her on social media and we'll see what happens. And as always, Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another amazing episode. A huge thank you to Amelia Livermore for coming on the show. I wish her the very best from one author to another. And as always, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. Wishing you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening. And we'll see you all in the next episode. Take care and have a wonderful day.